William. Ato in Juba, Malatori, hey, yo, in Ping William. Ato in Benti, wala kwaju, hey, wow, in Ping William. Ato in Malkal, wala Pinyaram, in Ping William.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to Let's Say Media. My name is Abraham Madid. I am in the studio right now with members of PCCA, Mr. Abraham Awolich and Rajab Mohandis. Welcome, gentlemen, to Let's Say Media again. It's been a while to see you guys. Before we go to our discussion, let me give this chance. For those of you who are watching in Facebook and Clubhouse and YouTube, please start sharing this room and this show on Facebook and YouTube. And before we begin our discussion, let me give 1 to 2 minutes to my guests in the studio to introduce themselves before we have our conversation. Abraham Awolich, I will give you this 1 minute to introduce yourself. How are you doing?
Well, thank you very much, Abraham Madid, and the leg. 1 second. Looks like I'm getting echo.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, sound good.
Right. So, yeah, I want to appreciate the Lake State Media team for hosting us today, and I am delighted that to greet the people of South Sudan. Happy New Year, 2024. It's been a while. I have not engaged in the media and interacted with you. So today I'm here, and I look forward to have meaningful, interactive discussion with you, always on the affairs of the Republic of South Sudan, the country that we all love. So thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you very much, Abraham Awolich. Let me welcome Rajab Mohandis. Rajab
Mohandis. Thank you very much, Comrades Abraham Madid and your team for the welcome and for inviting us to engage in conversation with our fellow citizens. And I'm happy to be here with you and to share views on our national matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ustaz Rajab Mohandis and Abraham Awolich. It's been a while. Let me start with you, Mr. Rajab Mohandis. Rajab, can you guys give us how is Governor Kura is doing right now? It's been almost a year now since he was released from prison, and people are wondering how is he doing his health-wise. So can you guys give us an update about him? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for this question. I really to start by asking about our colleague Abraham. Kwel Agüero. Governor Kwel is doing well. Is out, as you rightly said, out of detention over a year now, and he's in Juba. And
his network.
Yeah, it's freezing
okay,
up.
You can pick up from there, Abraham. Rajab have a network.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Abraham Madid, and the listeners of Lake State Media. Governor Kwel, as my colleague Rajab Mohandis has mentioned, is doing very well. He's still facing the same health issues, but it is better being outside he is able to move freely within Juba. And he spent actually Christmas and New Year in Awil. He is only unable to move outside the country. The government is still keeping his passport. But he's good. He's now teaching at the university and moving on with his life. And of course, he remains restricted. He's not able to speak freely on political matters, and he's still restrained as his documents are still kept by the government. But otherwise, he's doing okay. We would have loved to have him freed so that he can move in and out of the country to seek medical attention. But South Sudan, to a larger degree, is an open prison. Even if you are out, you are still constrained. And so he's constrained, but he's good. He's in a good spirit, and he's happy to be out. And we are in constant communication with him, and we are happy that he's finally out. And we thank the people of South Sudan and our international partners for demanding the release of Governor Quill, who was all along innocent, even though he was kept for 17 months in jail. So thank you very much. Quill is well and good, and he's in a good spirit, and he's in Juba, and he's able to move.
Thank you, Abraham. Do you have anything to add, Rajab Mohandis, before you drop
out? Thank you. I think my colleague has done the introduction and explained well about our colleague Kwela Gwer. I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us start with you, Rajab. Yeah, people who have been wondering what happened to PCCA. They have been quiet since the time that you guys launching and you guys been on social media for the few years when you guys come out, and then suddenly you are quiet. So South Sudanese people are wondering what are PCCA, with Rajab Mohandis and Abraham, what are they doing nowadays? Usually you guys put out the statement or the voice message, but you guys are quiet. So can you give us the update? What are you guys up to nowadays? What PCCA doing? Thank you, Rajab. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for this question. Yes, people raise these questions. Why are you quiet? Why is the PCC quiet? Obviously, people want to hear from us as they used to hear from us when we started in 2021 and also 2022. But we have been active. We have been active. First of all, we have been a voice on the situation in South Sudan, and we put out our positions and the statements which inform the people of South Sudan and those interested in the situation in South Sudan. Because if we do not speak for ourselves as South Sudanese, then others would be speaking for us, and the voices may not necessarily reflect our views as such. So that's one. Second, we have been engaging in terms of working on a number of things together with other partners in the National Consensus Forum, trying to find solutions to the situation in South Sudan, as we have always said, by non-violent means. And we find that it is important to push through with this aspect of non-violent approach to the situation in the country. So we have been working on that together in the National Consensus Forum. We have also remained actively engaged with our colleagues and our colleagues who are in the country to engage and discuss and find best ways on how we can approach or provide solutions to the situation. So we are actively engaging in different forms, and our voices are out there all these times. So I think people should be able to get all of these messages coming from us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajab Mohandis. Let me move same question to you, Awolich.
Well, thank you very much, Abraham Adit. It's a very good question. Definitely, the people of South Sudan got inspired by the PCCA, and they therefore want to hear from us always. And as my colleague Rajab has mentioned, we have been very active. We have been taking debate to the people who support the government. One of those debates, as you have seen, was here on Lake State Media with Atanyuek and Governor Elena Yen. We engaged him and we discussed these issues of the clientele, the cartels that are running the financial system in Juba. And the people of South Sudan overwhelmingly participated in that debate. We had other debates. One of them was with Professor John Akage, even though we didn't do it here on Lake State Media. But we had a very, very serious debate on the question of the South Sudan National Dialogue and why it was important, and why the Roundtable Conference is important to supplement and complement the national dialogue. We also debated recently with Professor John Akage and Dr. James O'Cook on the question of whether to have an election without the Constitution. That was also a very hot debate, and we participated meaningfully in that debate, arguing that we need a Constitution before the democratic elections. We have also been very vocal about the situation that unfolded last time in the Anua area when the government forces clashed with the youth in Pochala. We're able to put out our views on that. We have been very seriously concerned about the situation in Abyei and Twitch, and also the situation in the Unity State, and this continuing cycle of defections and redefections, basically encouraged by political actors to continue to create an insecure environment for the people of South Sudan. We have been speaking about those issues. It's just that we have adjusted our approach to those debates. We are debating people who are in a position of authority to make decisions on those things. Whereas when we started, we were in a campaign mode, trying to mobilize the people of South Sudan to come out and to protest. We were not successful in that. We didn't get a mass number of people because the government suppressed it. We have not changed our mind in that. We are still pushing. We think that the people of South Sudan hold the ultimate power to tell anyone who is oppressing them to get out. And that is the same area, the same emphasis. That is why we are promoting the idea of the Roundtable Conference. It's along the same lines, that the people of South Sudan need to come together, determine the future of their country. And so we have been very vocal, and we have been very active in the diplomatic corridors, engaging regional, international, and even national partners in this process. But definitely we love to be regularly on Lake State Media, and I think the next show you want to make is to bring John Akage here on this to debate with us. Although he recently changed his mind about the election, but he was pushing this idea of the election with Dr. James O'Cook. So I think it is time to have us here on this forum to debate this issue of the election with the government supporters and those who are pushing for the election. And perhaps also it would be good to have another show where representative of the National Consensus Forum representing different groups are here to discuss these national issues. That way, the people who follow us on Lagos State media are able to engage and follow us on those debates. So that is what I can say. We are here. We are not silent. We have just been using a different approach to how we approach and how we communicate our messages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abraham. Well, yeah, we're definitely going to arrange those shows. So we will reach out to Professor John Cage and see if we can arrange that debate, because this is a crucial time from now to election day. And it's good that we have this debate to see how this election will take place or not and how people feel about it. Let me begin with you, Abraham Wale, regarding, we see last year that PCCA joined NCF, and we see the NCF launched the statement last year, and we have seen 21 parties as the one joint umbrella of NCF, and PCCA is a part of that. So can you tell the South Sudanese why PCCA joined NCF? And second question, yeah, go ahead, answer the question, and then the part B is, we have seen, I received a document from NCF last year when they launching their statement, but I didn't see PCCA sign the statement. Why did you guys didn't sign the statement? That question got you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, the PCCA did not join the NCF. The PCCA created the NCF. And so there is a difference between joining something and creating something. So the PCCA actually initiated the process of bringing the people, pulling the people of South Sudan together. And so if you remember, the groups that were non-signatories, they had group SOMA 1 and SOMA 2. And so it was the initiative of the PCCA to bring these two groups together, and they created what they call non-signatories. So that was the initiative of the PCCA. And our message to them was that you need to unite together so that we can champion an inclusive, democratic South Sudan. And so they pick up that initiative, and then they went and met alone and agreed to come together. And instead of going back to SOMA, they created non-signatories South Sudan group. So NSSOG. So that is what they are now. And then together with them, we co-convene what they call the group of like-minded organizations. And like-minded organizations are organizations that are unhappy with the state of affairs in South Sudan, and we demand change. And so group of non-armed groups, armed movements and armed groups, and also civil society came together and made an agreement that we need to create a forum. And this led to the birth of the National Consensus Forum. So it's a space where we talk, we sit and discuss issues of South Sudan and how they can be resolved. And after that, we agreed that in order for us to move forward as a group together, we need to create what we call National Consensus Statement. Because if it is a National Consensus Forum, what are the issues around which we agree? And so that is when this National Consensus Statement was developed. And I can assure you that the PCCA played a significant role in the development of that document. And there are very important things that we have agreed on. First of all, we have agreed on the unity of the people of South Sudan. Secondly, we agreed on the territorial integrity of South Sudan, that we are not dividing South Sudan up. We will keep the integrity of our country, and that we will protect the borders and the boundaries of our country, and that the problem that we are facing in South Sudan is a governance issue. It is a failure of governance and a failure of leadership, and therefore any solution that is to come has to address those issues. And now the statement then move into what needs to be done in order to achieve these objectives. And one of them is the Roundtable Conference, which is a brainchild of the PCCA. We support it, and we are behind it. And also we are pushing for the idea that there has to be a new constitution in the country. But the other groups, obviously, they have a section there in the National Consensus Statement about a transitional government and about some degree of power sharing and all of that. And PCCA doesn't believe in that. We don't support any new power sharing agreement, and we don't support any new transitional government. We support change. We support a complete transition from these transitional systems into a new system. And so it is on that basis that the PCCA did not sign the National Consensus Statement. We don't oppose the statement. We agree with it 100%, but we have reservations about this idea of a transitional government. That's not, we don't support that, and that is why we didn't sign the document. We simply told our colleagues, you can sign the document, but we have reservations on this idea of the transitional government, and we oppose any new power sharing arrangement. And on that basis, we withheld our signature. But we fully support the National Consensus Statement, and we are fully members and co-conveners of the National Consensus Forum. It is our belief, and it is also part of our declaration, the PCCA declaration, that the unity of the people of South Sudan is important, and that we cannot work in isolation. We need to work with others, and we need to pursue nonviolent means to achieve change in our country. And so that is also part of what we have agreed in the National Consensus Forum, that we will pursue dialogue and nonviolent means to achieve peace. Although the National Consensus Forum obviously has armed groups, and they also believe that both nonviolence and violent means can be used. PCCA exclusively will pursue nonviolent means to achieve peace. And so that is why we are members, and that is why we created the National Consensus Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham Awolich. The same question goes to you, Sir Rajab Mohandis. So answer the same question. Why is it, Rajab Mohandis, why you guys having a reservation of not signing the statement of NCF? And also to explain more about South Sudanese, why NCF will be supported at this time. And so, yeah, go ahead with that question. Thank you. Unmute yourself.
Yes, well, thank you very much for this question. And my colleague has done justice to the question, so I will just add a couple of things. First is that the National Consensus Forum is simply a platform. And in that platform, organizations come and participate in building consensus on our national issues. And the idea is that the forum will expand to accommodate as many interested South Sudanese entities as they may wish to join. and each organization maintains its identity. So we get together, have conversations on our national issues, build consensus, and we continue to exist as a separate organizations as such. And it's an important aspect because we believe that, you know, the issues affecting our country require consensus building, requires dialogue. You know, we have to talk about these issues and together find solutions to them. So that's why the PCCA took the initiative towards the formation of the NCF and participates fully in the activities of the NCF. And we believe that this is important, that we could come together, build consensus with different actors, actors different from different political beliefs, as my colleague Awolich mentioned. There are those who believe the solution may be got through, struggle. There are those who have political approaches to the situation and all of that. So we think that when we are able to come together and build consensus, that is important. The second thing is that the national consensus statement captures everything we want to communicate to the people of South Sudan about our understanding of the context and the problem statement, and also approaches to finding lasting solutions. And so we believe that the document carries this information, and we encourage South Sudanese to read the national consensus statement, especially to understand the content and the communication put out through this document. We didn't sign, as explained by my colleague Awolich, because of some of the sections that call issues of a transitional governance arrangement in a way that we believe could be an outcome of the roundtable conference. And it's the roundtable conference is covered in the document, and we strongly support this call for a roundtable conference. Not really a way of getting together to negotiate among parties alone, but all South Sudanese should really come together to build consensus on the situation, to appreciate the fact that there is a crisis in the country and that we need solution to this crisis. So it is a peaceful, non-violent approach to the crisis. So we believe that it is important to take that route. Thank you.
Thank you, Ustad Rajab Mohandis. Yeah, let us a little bit explain more about NCF. 21 parties, different parties come together under the umbrella of NCF. And the way I see it, each party have their own leadership. And the way, like, has a spokesperson of NCF is General Paganamo. And also, this should be the affects all the political parties that will come together to make allies. So if you guys didn't appointed the chairperson of that leadership of NCF, did you guys discuss about this? Who will be the chairperson? Lead to be NCF chairman or chairlady? Unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you for this question. In the first meetings that we held in the process of establishing the National Consensus Forum, there were suggestions that the forum should be established as an organization and the structures should be created along these lines that you are mentioning, so that there should be a chairperson and all of that. And as the PCCA, we were a little bit reserved about this approach. If you look at our organization, first of all, the PCCA, we have no leadership structure. We are just an organization with a flat structure, coordination structure, and we move on. So we operate effectively in terms of decision making and activities and all of that. Now, if you go back to look at most of the organizations, political organizations in South Sudan that have been formed in this manner, the South Sudan opposition alliance, SOA, in Juba, is one such organization. Most of these organizations that come together to establish themselves like that with a political objective always break down. They break down, they disintegrate, and even SOA, as they remain still as one, they had challenges. Even they could not reach an agreement, especially you remember in the case of appointing one candidate for presidency and so on. So if we had put the idea of forming a fixed structure in the NCF with the chairperson, a deputy chairperson, and so forth, we would definitely come to this challenge. Usually, this question of forming these structures affect these operations of the organizations. You become too bureaucratic, and it also becomes, the whole thing would be interpreted in terms of now this is the governance structure for shadow cabinet structure for Sudan. The person who comes as the chair is automatically identified as the potential president, and you would also realize that this becomes easy for those who would want to attack the NCF to find soft grounds for attack. In terms of, our country is somehow divided, and one of the ways for undermining efforts to bring peace in South Sudan is to divide groups along ethnic lines. So if the NCF was organized in a rigid structure with a chairperson, and if the chairperson was my colleague Awolich, for example, automatically the NCF would be seen in terms of his ethnicity. If I was the chairperson, it would be seen in terms of my ethnicity or my region and all of that. So to remove ourselves from this issue of spending a lot of time on power and arrangement and all of that, we think that we should focus on the issues rather than the positions. And with that, we operate we take the NCF as a platform. We come to the platform as individual entities. We contribute, we build consensus, and we get back to our organizations as such. And so far, this is very effective. And we believe that the NCF remains a forum. We are not bothered about forming a rigid structure. We are okay the way it operates as a platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajab Mohandis. Awolich, do you want to add something on that before I move to the next? And mute yourself.
Yes, I have three things to add. One is that definitely PCCA support the national consensus statement. Even without our signature, we still believe that that document captures the sentiments of the people of South Sudan, and we urge people to support it. We made the reservation only to make the point that we strongly believe that pursuing another power sharing arrangement does not serve the interests of the people of South Sudan. That's why we did not sign as a form of a protest, but it is not a rejection of the document. We fully support the document, and we ask the people of South Sudan to support it. Number two, the NCF has a coordinator as an elder, somebody called Uncle David Bessioni, is a known person for the people of South Sudan. He simply coordinates everything for us, and he has a secretariat made up of all the organizations. And then there is a leadership, the leadership of the organizations. We meet and we make decisions. So it is a simple structure. It serves the purpose. So there is one coordinator. The decisions are made by leaders of the organizations, and the secretariat produces the outcome. And you can see the national consensus statement is an outcome of that process. So we meet, discuss, debate, disagree, try to persuade each other, even move outside the NCF and go and meet one-on-one as organizations, make an agreement, come back to the NCF, and it has worked very well and very effectively. And it has reduced tension, because the moment somebody sits at the top, the other person begin to think that they are not as important. And for us in the CPA, in the PCCA, we think that leadership should not be made as the center of everything. We have a problem to resolve in the country, and we just need to work as individuals or as entities to focus on the problems. And so the NCF is focused on issues, and the national consensus statement is a testament to that. And you will see other documents that will come from the NCF. They will be dealing with the issues rather than with the structures. And so that is a new model of leadership that we are trying to build. And that is what PCCA believes. And so lastly is to say that the organizations that are members of the NCF all believe in the unity of the people of South Sudan. And we all have now agreed, and that is the fundamental issue here that need to be underlined. We have all now agreed on what we define as a problem of South Sudan. Because you cannot work together on something that you don't know. So the animal, which is the problem of South Sudan, we now know as members of the NCF. And the most important part of that is that NCF is now open to bring in new organizations who have to agree to the national consensus statement and support it as a condition for joining the NCF. And so that way we are operating from the same angle of what is wrong with South Sudan. We may differ in terms of how do we resolve it and what tools do we need to use to resolve it, but at least we have a fundamental agreement on the problem. And that is the most important thing that we got out of the NCF. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abraham. Abraham, last month, the government, ruling party, government of South Sudan, sent a letter to President of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto. And government proposed that has the President William Ruto that to host the peace negotiation with Soma. And the peace negotiation, the government want to shift the peace negotiation from Rome to Kenya. And we have seen in the news for the last few days, President William Ruto accepted, and according to General Pagana Mom, a couple of days ago when we interviewed him, they received a letter from President Kenya, and also they talked, and it seemed like Soma, which is combined with the real SPLM, SAP, NAS, and NDM / PF. They divided themselves. Okay, two people agree, like real SPLM and SAP, they agree that the peace will be shifted from Rome to Kenya. But the rest of three, NDM and NAS, another political party, they refuse. They have reservation regarding about security issues and all kind of stuff. So my question is this: the reason why I'm asking you guys, because I know you guys have nothing to do with the Soma, but the reason why I'm asking this question is because the member of Soma, which are member of the non-signature all-out group, they are the one who signed peace agreement with the government. Okay, and also too, they are member of NCF. So what is your what PCCA your reaction to this? Is it what your reaction? I want to hear from you before I ask more questions about it.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead and answer that question. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Abraham. This is a very good question and an important issue to the people of South Sudan. First of all, the government continue to insist that there is something called Soma. There is nothing called Soma. Soma is done. the groups came together and created what they call NSSOG, and that is non-signatories uh, of South Sudan group. That is their official name now. And now that group, which is NSSOG, is the co-convener of the National Consensus Forum with the PCCA, plus other organizations. And we understand the strategy of the government. They want to negotiate with this group because they don't want to widen the table. And the reason the talks in Rome failed last time is because the group, the non-signatories are going back to Rome and telling the government that we are now NCF, we are now the National Consensus Forum, we have more organizations, and our agenda is to convene a roundtable conference. If you accept it, then we continue to talk. If you don't accept it, then there is no talk. Now the government has decided to reject that, and the talks in Rome broke down. And now it is the initiative of the president to come back and say, okay, I want to talk to these guys, and I want Kenya now to mediate. So our reaction is this as PCCA. We think that the Rome initiative was great. It was initiated by Pope Francis when he called our leaders to the Vatican, prayed for them, even kissed their feet, and pled with them to bring peace to the country and to reconcile the people. And Pope Francis followed up this meeting a year ago with a visit in Juba with the Archbishop of Canterbury and the moderator of the Presbyterian Church of Scotland. And so Senegidio, which is the negotiator and the mediator of this process, is an affiliated institute of the Vatican. And so that was the basis of that process. Now, because of the unwillingness of the government to move forward with this process, and because they are unwilling to open up the table to more people, they have been dragging their feet to try to weaken the spirit of individual leaders within the non-signatories so that they can bring them to Juba. They want to focus on Paul Malong, they want to focus on Pagana Mom, and they want to focus on Thomas Shirilo. Unfortunately, things have changed. These individuals are not talking as individual leaders. They are talking as representative of people of South Sudan who are aggrieved, and they have an agenda. They have a shared agenda. And so our reaction is that the relocation of the peace talks to Kenya is a good step in our view. And the reason is that in the international system, there is something called an article of subsidiarity. So, which means that you start things at the level of the UN, which is a big international organization, but then you have to move things to the regional groupings, and the African Union is the primary body responsible for security in Africa. But African Union also operates through what they call RECs, the regional economic groups. So IGAD is one of those RECs, and has been responsible for the Horn of Africa and Eastern Africa in terms of peace and security. And so the provisions of the UN Charter dictate that political issues must be resolved by the nearest body to the issue, which is why you have seen the negotiations of Sudan and the SPLM were led by IGAD. So bringing the talks to Kenya is a good initiative. We have no objection to that. Now, there are three fundamental things that must be understood and must be addressed with that shift. One, Kenya has been a place that has threatened the security and safety of political activists and civil activists. People have been kidnapped in Kenya. Samuel Dong and Egri Idris uh, are the two prominent leaders that were kidnapped in Kenya and they were executed. And recently, and also James Gadid Dak was kidnapped also in Nairobi and taken to Juba, the former spokesperson of Riek Machar. And recently, Maurice Maburiel was also kidnapped and taken to Juba and is now languishing in prison in Juba. So oppositions have legitimate concern to say that Kenya is not safe. They have allowed the government of South Sudan to have free hand in Nairobi to kidnap political opposition, and therefore they don't feel safe. So that is one issue. Our response is that that issue is important to be addressed, and now it is up to Kenya to prove itself that it can provide that safe space for opposition. Two is that the way the government and the Kenyan government try to approach this process is going to let it is going to collapse. It may collapse because they are trying to approach each individual organization when they know for sure that these groups are now operating as one unit through what they call the group of non-signatories and also through the National Consensus Forum. And so if Kenya wants to be a credible mediator, they, first of all, yes, it is good that they are consulting those people who are negotiating in Rome, but it will be very soon that they need to realize that this is a much broader issue and that they need to negotiate directly with the National Consensus Forum, which include a number of groups. And not only National Consensus Forum, you have to widen the table. If you are looking for a comprehensive solution, you need to bring on board people like Gadwich Dual. You need to bring on board people like the head of SPM, Stephen Rolnyang. Thank God Stephen is part of the National Consensus Forum, so there would be no need to reach out to him alone. But our approach is that this should be used as an opportunity not to pursue individual opposition leaders, but it should be used as an opportunity to open up a process to all the people of South Sudan and turn that process into what we call the roundtable conference instead of another negotiation and another power sharing deal. Now, lastly, the last point I would like to make is that the process should not just be led by Kenya. It should be a process that is supported by IGAD and by African Union and by the United Nations Security Council. That way, it has a weight of international support. If it is just Kenya mediating it, without the support of IGAD and without the support of the African Union, as well as the UN Security Council, then it is a process that is likely going to not go anywhere in terms of producing a lasting solution for the people of South Sudan. So those are some of the fundamental issues that we have identified, but we are saying that yes, the opposition have reservations and concerns with Kenya because of those experiences they have cited. But we are also saying that Kenya is a government. It has a legitimate government. And we should give the Kenyan leaders the opportunity to prove themselves as capable mediators, able to address the concerns of the opposition, and able to widen the table, and also able to generate sufficient support for the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Awolich. The same question go to you, Mr. Mohandis.
Okay, thank you for this question. I will add, say, 2 or 3 points to what my colleague has explained. First is that IGAD recently had a summit of heads of states and government in Kampala. I think the 42nd summit of IGAD's assembly of heads of states and government, and they issued a statement that says Sudan, that was about Sudan, and they said Sudan does not belong to the parties. And I see this as an important statement. And so with regard to this initiative, we want to suggest and state that the issues of South Sudan should no longer be limited to the parties. And so this initiative should be a platform that provides an opportunity to find a comprehensive, lasting solution to the situation in South Sudan. The experience of getting parties together and getting them to sign an agreement and go back to the country without implementing this agreement is enough for South Sudan. And so we need to come together as a country and find a lasting solution to this. And so our hope is that this discussion, this arrangement should yield into the roundtable conference and provide an opportunity for South Sudanese to really comprehensively find solution to the situation in the country. The second is that we should also move away from piecemeal solutions to the crisis, where this crisis that we face in the country, which is a monumental crisis in nature, but national crisis, are addressed in piecemeal fashion, where solutions are found, kind of selectively, but not comprehensively. And so in this regard, there should not be an arrangement that only targets the members of the non-signatory South Sudanese opposition group, NSS-SOG, but it should be broader. And as Chief Awolich mentioned, it should cover most of these groups who are out of government, but also those in government, and also broadly the South Sudanese stakeholders, the churches and the civil society and the rest, so that it does not just end in the parties agreeing on what they want, but the issues that affect the country broadly are adequately addressed in such an arrangement. But the other point I want to bring, I think, is about the way this arrangement is being done, where the government takes an initiative as a party to this conversation or negotiation in Rome, and shifts the venue and suggests a mediator, and takes all of these initiatives unilaterally without also communicating effectively to the other groups. I think that would cause a kind of suspicion to appear like this is a Juba-led process or President Kiir's led process, and in that case, the other groups might see it with suspicion that it may not be a process that would allow them to freely participate. And so it is important to treat this in a manner that everyone involved should have confidence and faith in the mediators or the negotiators, and that this arrangement, I just want to reemphasize that it should not just be an issue, a Kenya-led mediation. It should be broader and should have the involvement of the other actors, the IGAD as a regional body, and also the African Union in a way, as Awolich mentioned, so that we have all these actors involved to push and to ensure that South Sudanese really find a more lasting solution to the situation in the country, as opposed to the trials that we have made and have not delivered peace effectively in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ustad Rajab Mohandis. I have a follow-up question regarding about this, and you can, Rajab. If, according to the government is not organized NCF, okay? And what I'm hearing from you guys, that there's no Soma. Soma is dead. So the only things the government should focus on and have a peace negotiation with them is NCF. But that's not the case of the member of Soma. So that's not the case with the Pagana Mom, General Pagan. That's not the case with the Thomas Chirilo, General Thomas Chirilo, or General Paul Malongawan and Ambassador Emmanuel Chawin. So they still maintain as a non-signature or whole-out group or Soma. These are the name that they have been calling them. So they still maintain that the peace that they signed with the government is still ongoing. So according to you guys, what are you guys, according to your behind-the-scene meeting with the member of Soma or whole-out group or non-signature, what is your meeting with them? Are they agreeing with you, what you guys are saying, that there's no Soma, government should talk with NCF? So
Well,
go ahead.
yes. Well, you know, Soma had existed at the beginning of these negotiations in Rome. They went on as Soma until 2022, when they came together. There was Soma 1 and Soma 2. If you follow that, you may not hear of Soma 1 and Soma 2 again this time. The two merged in our understanding. They merged to constitute the non-signatory South Sudanese Opposition Group, NSSSOG. And so that's why we say Soma has actually merged into that. The Soma 1 and Soma 2 have merged into the NSSSOG. So that is the way they refer to themselves as we know so far. And that is how we also refer to them in the NCF as such. And the government looks to them. When you talk of Soma, obviously it's the same actors. The government looks to them because they were the ones engaging in the Rome process, and the government wants to continue with engaging only with them. And of course, if you hear from the government, they only want to continue from where they stopped with the negotiations in Rome, which means building up from where they stopped. And in that case, the actors would remain the same, NSSSOG and the government. The problem with that is that it provides a limited, incomprehensive solution. You still have actors, and in that case, armed actors outside that you may not incorporate. And so you will, if they were to reach an agreement, they would also need to have another negotiation, possibly to have another agreement, or they might have to confront some of the actors that are not in the NSSOG. For example, SSPM A of General Stephen Boy Rolnyang is not in the NSSOG group. And so in that regard, if the government limits it to them, the other groups will still be there. In other words, actually, if it is just a negotiation to get these guys into an agreement, a comprehensive solution would not be possibly reached to address this crisis in the country. So the idea is that we should move away from simply bilateral discussions between government and the group to have a South Sudanese process, a more comprehensive process. You may recall in 2017, actually from 2016, for those of us who are in the civil society, we kept reporting that the 2015 agreement was not meeting its intended objectives. And for political reasons, no one actually wanted to say the agreement collapsed until the call for revitalization was made. This call was made because IGAD realized that progress was not being made at all in the implementation of the agreement. And so they had to call for revitalization. And when they called for the revitalization, they invited South Sudanese academics and civil society and religious leaders, women and youth and all of that to consultation to understand what the South Sudanese thought the revitalization should look like. I happened to be part of the group that was consulted by IGAD when they held a consultative meeting in Addis. And in the consultations, the recommendation was that by the time the 2015 agreement was signed, it was only SPLM-AIO that was confronting the government. And so the agreement was between the government and the SPLM-AIO. But following the signing of the agreement in 2015, quite a number of other entities emerged, which means that the agreement did not offer a kind of a comprehensive solution to the situation. And so it was recommended that IGAD should go around the country and in the region to identify the groups that emerged after the 2015 agreement was signed. And that was when most of these actors were mapped and included and invited for the higher level revitalization forum. The intention of the agreement was to find a lasting solution with everyone involved. Now we have seen emergence of more groups that are against the government, and we have seen the agreement also not progressing effectively to deliver peace in the country, which means the problem itself has not been decisively addressed, and that is why there is this call for a new arrangement. If the government was to implement the agreement fully, it would actually render all the opposition groups irrelevant in a way, because if it is about the economy that they are complaining, the economy is improving. If it is about security, the security would be addressed, would be working for the citizens. And if it is humanitarian crisis, it would be improving. But all of these things actually, since the agreement was signed until now, continue to worsen, indicating that the solution that has been provided through the agreement is not delivering actually as intended. And that is why there is this call for more negotiations. And the government should not get into the mistake of, again, having a similar arrangement that may end up not delivering. That's why it is important to be more broad and capture every concern and have a broader South Sudanese led process, an inclusive process that would, in a way, in our belief, deliver a more lasting solution to the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Abraham Awolich, if you answer this, what you guys are discussing between PCCA and the member of SSOG or member of SOMA? If they are now, it seems like they are now still continuing. You mentioned before that there's no longer SOMA or SSOG. The only active right now, the name is NCF. But that's not the case. The member of SOMA or SSOG are still proceed ahead with the government with their peace negotiation, whether they would be held in Kenya or in Rome. How you and the rest of opposition feel if Thomas Shrilo, Paganamon, Paul Malongawan, Imawan Jawin, and the other member sign the peace deal with the government, and then they go back to Juba to join the government? How do you guys feel? Do you guys feel that with SOMA or SSOG will betray the rest of opposition? Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you. We are members of the NCF together with the non-signatories. That means that we talk. That means that we know what they are intending to do, and so we are convinced that they are not going to negotiate a peace agreement alone with the government. they will negotiate a peace agreement or a roundtable conference as we have agreed in the national consensus statement. So we are confident of that. You also mentioned previously that these groups are now divided. There are people who want the peace in Rome, and there are people who want the peace in Nairobi. That is not the case. The case is that there are people who are concerned about safety and security, and that they want this preliminary, because if you look at the way the process is structured, is that each individual member, it is not even SOMA, it is each individual organization got invited to participate in what they call pre-negotiation consultations. And so those groups that are concerned about the security, given the history of Kenya and the kidnapping of opposition and civil society activists, they want that consultation to be done in Rome. Meanwhile, Paul Malone, who is already in Nairobi, and SG Pagan, they are comfortable being consulted in Nairobi. They have no issue with that. So I think it is not that they are divided. It is simply that there is not enough that has been done yet to assure the security of all the parties. And number two, they still don't know what is being proposed. And so you cannot say there is going to be negotiations. They are just being consulted, and Kenya is going to present to them how they think they will approach this process. And if they agree with that approach, they will accept Kenya as a mediator. And therefore, that will now bring them to a place where they could agree whether to negotiate in Kenya or outside Kenya. So we are in what they call preliminary stages of negotiation. And what we know is that Thomas Cirillo and Emmanuel Ajawin and others who want to be consulted in Rome, what they are going to put to the government in Rome is what we have agreed in the national consensus statement. They will tell the government that we won the roundtable conference, and we want to have a comprehensive resolution to the crisis in South Sudan. And the problem is defined as it is understood, as it is articulated in the roundtable, in the national consensus statement. So all of us, which is why the national consensus statement is important, all of us have agreed that this is how we look at the problem. And we also have agreed to a larger degree, this is how we think the problem can be resolved. It can be resolved through the roundtable conference, which will eventually lead to a national constitutional agreement rather than a power sharing agreement. This is how we look at it as a PCCA. And so we don't believe that the real SPLM and SUF and NAS and NDM and UDM and NSSMC will go and sit separately with the government and negotiate and make an agreement and go home and leave everybody behind. They will not do that. They are committed to the vision and program of the National Consensus Forum, and we are going to pull our weight together, address the fundamental problem of South Sudan without cutting corners, and then we can all go home together without leaving anybody in the bush. And so we are confident, and we are in touch with the members that have been invited. And so what is happening now are what they call preliminary pre-dialogue or pre-negotiation consultations, both to look at the problem and the agenda. And we know that the agenda that will be presented will be the NCF agenda, and we will have no objection to an agenda that we have agreed to already. So we are confident in that, and that is what we are working on. We are also going to engage the Kenyan government as a mediator to make sure that and we are happy already. We know that the African Union has already been informed. We also think that the UN Security Council should be informed about this. and that IGAD should continue to play the role as the mediator. And Kenya, of course, is the member state of IGAD, and they can lead the negotiation as they did with the with the CPA. But it will need to involve others, and the table needs to be broadened. And the government is not going to get an agreement with individual leaders that they have already identified. They will find that these leaders are looking for a much broader table that we are calling for as a round table. So we are very confident they are not going to negotiate and leave everyone else behind, and they are not going to betray anyone. So that is according to our internal agreement within the NCF.
What if though? What if they continue and sign the peace agreement? Because what you are saying now, you're saying that you think that they will not sign the peace agreement and leave the rest of you guys behind. But what we are seeing, according to the letters that the government of Kenya sent them, okay, so they came up and they said, okay, we need to write some of the proposal that they need to write a one letter to respond to the Kenyan government, Kenyan president. But each of them, some of them say each of us have to write each letter, because the letter came to each one of them. Letter came to General Malong, letter came to General Pagan, these people, and letter came to General Thomas Shrilo and Emmanuel. Okay, those 5 leaders, they received the letters. But when they met, they said that 3 of them, Pagan and Paul, they said that we will each of us, they will write their own letter. Pagan and Paul Malone, they will write the letter. And then Thomas Rilo, Emmanuel, and other person, 3 of them, they will write their own letter. There's a division here, Abraham Awolich. They divided here already. They are going back to Soma 1 and Soma 2. That's what I'm seeing. Okay.
Right. Well, that is, I have addressed that already, to say that the disagreement is not in the talks. The disagreement is on the question of venue. So the other groups that feel threatened by the security and safety of their people feel that given the history of Kenya allowing government of South Sudan to come in to kidnap people, and given the engagement of the national security leaders with the Kenyan government who were part of this preparation, what if they have agreed that if we come to Kenya, we get kidnapped? So the disagreement is not in the talks themselves and the issues around which talks could be held. The disagreement is whether these pre-negotiation consultations should take place in Kenya or outside Kenya. And I think those are very legitimate disagreements. They make sense. If I feel secure, for example, they could say, let us have the talks in Juba. If I feel secure going back to Juba, I will be among those who will say, yeah, let us go to Juba. But if I don't feel secure in Juba, I will say, no, I cannot negotiate in Juba. So it is a question of there are not enough assurances given already by Kenya to allay the fears of those who want to be consulted in Rome. So they want to be consulted in Rome. The other group want to be consulted in Nairobi. And the disagreements are necessary. They are part of the broader debate, because if you agree to just go to Nairobi, then the issues that are already underlying, that include the kidnapping and killing of political leaders, would not be addressed by Kenya. So they want to protest. They want to show that they are not happy with that. And it is now a burden of Kenya to prove that they are not going to allow people to be kidnapped. Now, on the other hand, you can see the diplomatic strategy here. If it is President Kiir who came to Kenya and say, this is the list of people I want to negotiate with, can you be the mediator? diplomatically, it would be wrong for Ruto to go and create a different list. So they have to conform to what the government is asking them to do by inviting each of those individuals to the table as they were in Rome. So we have no problem with that. That is the diplomatic decorum. That is how you use it. Now, if suppose Ruto wrote back to President Kiir and say, actually, I don't recognize these people, but I want to negotiate between you and the NCF. President Kiir is going to ask, where did you get the NCF from? So Ruto has to follow that. But what we are telling you is that what they are going to discover through this pre-negotiation consultation is that there is a group called NCF, of which these groups that have been sent the letters, all of them are members. And they will tell them, both the government and the mediator, that we are no longer these people that you consider to be. We are no longer Soma. We are no longer Soma 1. We are no longer Soma 2. And we are no longer separate individuals. We are now part of a much broader South Sudanese network of civil society, political parties, armed groups called the National Consensus Forum. And that is how we like to be addressed. And that is the forum and that is the platform through which we are going to negotiate with you. Now, if the mediator does not accept that, they will have to go back to the government and say, the people that you gave me have now come out and say they are no longer identified as this, they are identified as that. But again, anything in politics is possible. So it is possible that these guys will could go ahead and negotiate with the government and cut a deal. It's possible. I cannot rule that out. But we also have access to those diplomatic channels. So we will then assert ourselves into that process. We will say we want to be part of the process. We want other South Sudanese to be part of the process. We have identified the problem as we have agreed through the NCF. And if the problem is identified as such, it requires a much broader solution. It doesn't require each individual cutting a deal with the government. And it will be the disadvantage. They have already seen that somebody called Johnson Olony cut a deal with the government and went to Juba. Now he is unable to go back to Malakal. He has been trapped in Juba. They also know that Dr. Lamakol also went back to Juba recently, and they organized a very nice party for him. And before he could show up in the party, they canceled that agreement, and they canceled the party. And we know Dr. Riek Machar is in Juba right now. He is not able to go to Terkeka, leave alone Malakal or Wow. He is confined to Juba. He's not allowed to travel. So these leaders are aware of that situation. So it would be up to them. If they want to cut a deal, go to Juba and stay in an open prison, that is up to them. But we trust that will not happen. And we are confident also that it will not happen. They will negotiate as a group, and we will be part of that process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Awolich. Rajab, about security concern, the opposition going to Kenya, the security concern. Here is the part of argument. Some of the members of SOMA, they said that the peace cannot be moved to Kenya because of what you guys mentioned. But the argument is here. Paul Malong is in Kenya. General Pagana Moom, he traveled Kenya and back. And General Wiai, Denga Jack, he go to Kenya. He's in Kenya. He went to Kampala, another part of Africa, and government have not captured them. And we have seen the comment that General Wiai did said in the interview last year that he will go to Juba with his Kalashnikov, and still is there. Why is it the security concern with these specific three people that they are concerned about their security if they go to Kenya? And why is it these three general like Samuel Garrett, for instance, he's in Kenya? So why is it the other opposition who are staying or living in Kenya, they don't have any issues, or government didn't kidnap them, take them to Juba? Why is it these people, these three leaders that who are part of signature of Rome, they're afraid that if we go to Kenya, government will capture us? Why government didn't capture the other opposition leader who are living in Kenya? Go ahead with that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for this question once again. You know, each individual is different, is unique. And if we go back a little bit and mention the names that were already mentioned here of individuals who were kidnapped from Kenya, they were kidnapped. For example, if you go to the first individuals who were kidnapped, for example, Egri and Samuel Doe, they were kidnapped when we have over 500,000 South Sudanese in Kenya. The two were chosen and picked out of the nearly 5 million, 500,000 South Sudanese in Kenya, which means the government has a separate file for each individual, and that applies to these opposition leaders as well. The files the government has on each one of them is not the same. And so, on that note, the government may not be interested to kidnap Paul Malonga one, for example. As you may recall, Morris, civil rights activist, was recently kidnapped. It's true that there may be more activists like him in Kenya, but he was selected and picked, leaving the others. So if these opposition leaders are 5 or 6 or so, there may be separate interests in each one of them. And that could be the reason why not all of them share the same understanding of their safety in Kenya. That would be my thinking on that. Thank you.
Thank you. While we are running out of time, I have 2 more questions, then we can, and I see that some of the people in Club out there have questions to ask, and I know we are running out of time. Let me move to roundtable very quick. Awolich, you guys talk a little bit about roundtable. So let me see, what is the difference between roundtable and national dialogue that you two were part of it? Okay. What is the difference here, and how effective will the roundtable will take, and where will the roundtable will take place? Is it in diaspora or back home? And if government rejecting roundtable, and what will be the next solution for you guys to do? Take Awolich. Okay, so Rajab, Mohandis, are you there?
Yes, I am. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Awolich.
Well, the roundtable conference is a political process that involves political organizations. The national dialogue process was an open process, open to the people of South Sudan, but it was initiated by President Salva Kiir Mayardit. So the resolutions of the national dialogue were going to be implemented only in as much as President Kiir wants them implemented. And so people negotiated, and then the report was given to him because he was the initiator. The roundtable conference will be different. It will be a neutral environment in which the government is a participant, and other groups are participants. And the result of that of the roundtable conference will not be a peace agreement, but it will be agreement on the constitution, as well as agreement on the addressing the issue of the partisan of the national army, and also the issue of economic management of the national economy and national resources. And so there will be, so the roundtable conference is is at a higher political level, where the leaders of the country holding various political opinions and views will need to reach a consensus on how to move the country forward. And so it is very much different from the national dialogue, which was an initiative of the sitting president. It was a project of President Kiir, and so its implementation entirely depended on President Kiir. But the resolutions of the Roundtable Conference will not entirely depend on President Kiir. They will depend on the agreement among the political forces in the country.
Thank you very much. Rajab, do you have something to add on that so I can move to the next? We need to, we have left with 3 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, as we're running out of time, I think the contribution made by Awolich is enough. We can move on.
Okay. So the last question regarding about the election, as the country is geared up for the election in this December. So what you guys think? Whether the election will take place in December or not, and why?
Well,
Rajab, I think, is frozen.
Yeah, go ahead, Abramovich. Rajab's network.
Right. On the question of elections, definitely the position of the PCCA is that the country is not ready for democratic elections or even sham elections. So we think that there is more work that needs to be done in order to prepare the country for election. And we think that the important step that needs to be taken is that unity and reconciliation needs to happen in the country. The war of 2013 has divided the country very bitterly. You are aware of this bitterness in the social media, and you are aware of the events happening back home where different ethnic communities are fighting. As we speak, there is an active conflict between the people of Twitch and people of Abia. There is an active conflict between people of Wow and people of Gorial West or Gorial East. And there was an incident recently between Lake State and Warab, in which a lot of people got killed. And of course, you have an issue recently in Jonglei State. So the country is not stable. The country is not peaceful. People are divided. And so we need to invest our resources on pulling the people of South Sudan together, which is why we think one way to do that is to call for the roundtable conference. Because once you bring all these political forces together and you have an agreement, and then you go out, you move out into the country and preach peace and unity among the people of South Sudan, and you now give hope to the refugees and internally displaced persons to go back to their homes, and you create security stability, then you make a new constitution. Now you can talk about having an election. Right now, those things are not ready. President Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar himself, who signed an agreement with him, have not gone out together to campaign that there is peace in the country and that there is reconciliation. They are not seen embracing peace and reconciliation among themselves. And you have other important leaders like Paul Malong and Pagana Mom and Thomas Cirillo, those of who are outside the country. You have us, Rajab Mohandis and Awolich and others outside the country. So the country is really bleeding. And if we have a sham election, the result is going to be violence. And it doesn't matter. It is not about President Kiir and Riek Machar anymore. Violence could happen at the level of a county, as we have seen in Jonglei when David Yao lost the election. And so we think South Sudan really need to invest in peace and reconciliation. national unity, unification of the armed forces, so that we have an army that is not loyal to Dr. Riek Machar or President Kiir, but an army that is loyal to the constitution and the people of South Sudan. And so, on the ground, on the basis of that, we think that it is unwise for the people of South Sudan to go for elections in December. There is a lot of work that needs to be done before we could do that. Otherwise, we will find ourselves in the same place. Have an election, have war, go back to the negotiation table, and then you try to put the country back together. We should not make that mistake. We have already made a mistake in 2013, and it should not be repeated. And so let us really invest in peace and security and stability, stabilize the economy a little bit, and then now we can discuss elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, about economy. Yeah, go ahead, Rajab. Talk about economy. The question of economy, we can save it for another day. And then we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me add.
Rajab, also, I want you to join me in Clubhouse. So there are some people that will want to ask questions. So go ahead and ask something, and then I will close down the room. Then you can join me in
Okay.
Clubhouse. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Just to add very briefly, Madit, elections are like pregnancies. That is how I usually describe them. When someone is pregnant, she doesn't go around to say, I am pregnant, to try to announce to people, to convince people to understand that she's pregnant. There are signs to show that there is pregnancy in this person. Now, elections that we only talk about, you only hear people, we are going to conduct elections in December. We are going to conduct elections in December. What are the signs? This year, 2024, there are about 19 African countries going for elections, including South Sudan, that with its scheduled election. In those countries that are going for elections together with South Sudan this year, they have their commissions operational throughout the country. We do not have our commissions, the elections commission everywhere. They have the constituency already demarcated. They have all political parties registered. They are campaigning. Voters have been registered, and they are getting voter education and all of these things. When you get to these countries, you will see the countries in elections mood, which is not the case in South Sudan. Even if there is a political will now to conduct elections, we don't think that this will be possible in the remaining time to cover all of these things, have the elections commission operational everywhere, have budgets for them, train the staff, deploy them, and all of these things. So this issue of the elections, when it is discussed, it turns out to say there are people who are against elections, there are people who are not against elections. It is the fact that when you look at the situation on the ground, there is no manifestation that election is actually going to happen. And if it is organized, they face the problem of all of these factors, insecurity that Awolich talked about, and all of these things. Now, you go to any part of South Sudan and ask the citizens what their priority would be. They will tell you that we are starving. My child has died of hunger. We are in this situation. That would be their priority. So the government needs to really, if it is serious, has to look at all of these things and stop telling people that elections are going to happen when there is no sign of that practically on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajab Mohandis and Awolich, for coming to Lake State Media at this juncture. I will end the room here. Before I go ahead, I will give you, each one of you, one minute to conclude, to put in your last statement before I close down the studio. I will begin with Awolich.
Well, thank you very much, Abraham Madid and the Lake State Media team for hosting us once again and for continuing to enlighten and bring information to our people. This is what I like to tell the people of South Sudan. Sometimes we feel that people who have different opinion from us are bad or they are enemies, but they are actually part of building up a country. Why do I say this? When we decided to speak out as members of the PCCA, our intention was not to destroy our country or to create noise, but to actually fix the country. And I can say with some degree of confidence that we have brought some change to South Sudan. Look at the appointment of young people recently. The economic team. You have Dr. Barnaba back. You have Dr. James Ali. You have Joseph Gang, and recently you have Augustino Ting and somebody called brother Corwell, Dr. Corwell, being given the National Bureau of Standard, and Augustino with the National Bureau of Statistics. There is some change. This was not possible in 2021. And so you can blame us for talking, but if we don't talk, things don't change. We are not trying to claim credit for the appointment of those individuals, but we have a right to claim some credit for that. We raise an alarm, and that alarm has been heard, and the president is trying to make his image and appeal to the young people. He knows that young people are angry and they are not happy with him. And so he's trying to make these appointments to try to appeal to the young people. That is well and good. But at the same time, while those appointments are appreciated, there has to be an element of diversity as well. Those guys that I mentioned are mostly from Baragazal. And I think the president he should continue to appoint young people, but they should be diverse. They should include women, and they should include people from Equatoria and people from Upper Nile. Talking in your own country and complaining about things not going well is not a bad thing. That is what we call patriotism, and that is what we call citizenship. So the people of South Sudan have a right to be unhappy with the current state of affairs in the country. The economy is not going well. People are not secure. People are going backward instead of moving forward. And the president has the capacity and the power to end this nonsense, to end all of this. But we blame him for his unwillingness to end these things. So there is a need. Now that he has created this initiative, we are appealing to him, the president, not to use this as an opportunity to try to create another political opportunity for him to stay longer in power, but he should actually use it as an opportunity to end the conflict in the country and to bring to an end the divisions that have affected the country and to bring everybody home. But if he is to be believed and if his initiative is to be trusted, why is he unwilling to implement an agreement that is already there in Juba? Why is he not willing to allow people like Dr. Riek Machar, people like Dr. Lamakol to be free and to conduct political activities freely? So there are issues of trust that the president must address. And it is not going to be enough to appoint young people to hold some political portfolios as a way to address the major crisis in the country. That's not going to be enough. Yes, it is good that you start appointing young people, and it is good that they are qualified, but they need to be diversified. But the fundamental issues affecting the country need to be addressed. Those are the things that will make youth happy. Those are the things that will quieten the youth. But the appointments of individuals here and there do not address the fundamental problems. And now here is an opportunity which he has initiated with the Kenyan government, which we think should be widened to include IGAD and African Union. and to hold a full roundtable with all the political forces in the country to reconstitute political consensus, which broke down in 2013. This is what we are calling for. This is what PCCA stands for. This is the cheapest way and non-violent way to end the crisis in the country. And now we have this opportunity, and we are inviting the people of South Sudan to put pressure on President Kiir and the government to accept the roundtable and to negotiate in good faith and to end the violence in the country and bring peace. Thank you very much. And obviously, we should not rush into the elections. The elections will bring the country down. And therefore, we should invest in things that unite us and move the country forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Awolich. Rajab?
Thank you. Maybe just two things to add in conclusion. The first is that South Sudanese are speaking out on the situation in our country in different ways. And the political leaders in their different formations should listen to the voices of the people and respond to these genuine concerns being raised by citizens all across the country in different ways. The second is that the level of violence and killings in the country is quite disturbing. You are aware of these recent incidences of violence among communities, violence in different parts of the country, even violence that are waged by government forces on civilians in different forms. And so these killings, I think, should disturb our conscience as people and as a country, where you hear 15 people got killed, 30 people got killed, 70 people got killed. This number of people women got raped. These people got tortured. All of these things are completely unnecessary and unacceptable the way it happens to they happen to citizens in our country. And so there is need really for all of us. The churches must not keep silent when people are being tortured, terrorized, and killed. The civil society actors, the political leaders, and everyone else who is a serious concerned citizen should not keep quiet. These killings must first of all come to an end. Citizens should not be subjected to this situation. First of all, people have been impoverished enough. They are not paid salaries, they are suffering, and now you take crimes to them. This is totally unacceptable. We want all of these things to happen, to stop. This situation should not continue the way they are happening in the country. Otherwise, I thank you very much for inviting us to this platform to share views on the situation in our country, and also thank the audience who have been following this conversation on the different platforms. I thank my colleague Awolich for the explanations, and hope to join again when you invite us again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ustaz.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Awolich. Have a wonderful day, wonderful night, and thank you, viewers who are listening in Clubhouse and YouTube and Facebook. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night. Thank you. Thank you.
William. Atoin Juba, Malatori, Ayambio, Pin Ping William. Atoin Benti, Walla Quaju, Ayawao, Pin Ping William. Atoin Malkal, Walla Pinaram, Pin Ping William.